My morning's ride was fantastic. I was still unfamiliar with the bike when I left the house yesterday. I'd put less than 2,000 kilometers on the bike so far, and things like turning on the high beams were a challenge. But by now, I was getting comfortable with the bike. I had resisted buying a GS for years. Bikes are jewelry, and the GS is kinda like wearing lots of big gold chains. I was never really sold on the idea of being the kind of person that rode a GS. I have to say that branding aside, it's a phenomenal machine. Being shorter, I'm always scared of doing low-speed maneuvers. But that boxer engine does make you feel like a champion, and you can tackle any U-turn thrown at you. When I ordered the bike, I checked every box for all the options available, and it's probably twice as expensive as any other motorcycle I've ever owned. Still, so far, I have no regrets. I was excited about my next planned stops based on what I saw online. Watch along and see how it goes. Interesting paint job. That is quite the thing. I think I'm going to go around and do another take on that one. Nice cube up here. Nice artwork there too. Okay, I always signal in roundabouts if I'm not going straight through. Okay, look at that. We got a little spaceman flying paper airplanes. Not sure that's practical, but it's a thing. It's rather impressive. Okay, now the GPS is like, I have no idea what the hell it is we're doing. There is the church. Igreja something or another. Santa. I came to the town of Faro because the church here has one of those bone chapels that dot Portugal. Sadly, the church was locked up tight and I could not find my way in. These bone chapels are supposedly made from the bones of monks, and when the cemeteries are too full, they exhumed the bones and made them into these little chapels. Rather creepy and fascinating. As I was leaving the parking lot, the mount for my helmet let go, and my GoPro almost hit the pavement. I decided the bad luck fairy must be with me, so it was a good time to stop and have lunch. We're off. I had you know, I know like everybody knows French bread, but damn, I had good bread again for lunch. Sadly, first time I've gotten mayonnaise on a sandwich, like nowhere else in Portugal. If you get to the Algarve, mayonnaise becomes a thing. They probably have enough tourists. They have adopted fucking mayonnaise. I learned about the Palace of Estoi on Atlas Obscura. It wasn't on my first itinerary, but I'm glad I decided to change it and made it here, because it turns out that it was my favorite place of the day. The history that I've managed to piece together may have many errors. I looked at various websites and they all differed in timing for the early part of the construction. What is clear is that it took a long time to be completed and it's breathtaking. Initially known as the Gardens of Estoi, Francisco José Moreira de Brito de Carvajal y Vasconcelos, I'm waiting for someone to comment and tell me how wrong I got that. But anyway, he inherited it in 1782. Accounts differ on when the original construction started. What is clear is that Francisco died in 1823 before construction could be finished, and that the architect of the project was Mateus Vicente de Oliveira. Mateus was one of the principal architects working for the Marquis de Pombal on the reconstruction of Lisbon. Before the earthquake, Mateus worked for João Frederico Ludovici while they were constructing the Grand National Palace of Mafra. The National Palace of Mafra is also magnificent and near my house. In 1893, a local pharmacist and politician, José Francisco de Silva, purchased the property and started work to complete it. De Silva spent so much money on the project that it gathered the king's attention. Completed in 1906, the king awarded De Silva the title of Visconde de Estoi for his efforts. Sadly, De Silva passed away, and the property was inherited by too many relatives to be adequately cared for. In 1977, it was classified as a property of public interest, and a decade later it was purchased by the municipality of Faro. The government paid for the reconstruction and the addition of an adjoining hotel. It opened to the public in 2009. Entrance to the upper gardens and the buildings is €3 unless you're a hotel guest. The lower gardens are free but can only be entered on the road from the town. The restaurant and hotel look excellent, and I wish I'd stayed here.
That was pretty amazing. The hotel doesn't look too much like a blight on the land back there next to this fantastic building. Okay. This couple is riding 2 up on a 125. Probably 2-stroke. More power to them.
The palace was my last stop of the day. I knew my itinerary was too ambitious, so I'd already trimmed it down, and then with my camera failure, I wasn't going to get great footage anyway. Initially, when I'd looked for a house in Portugal, I had been considering the Algarve as a possibility. I wanted to visit some of the towns I'd been considering to check things out and see if I'd made a big mistake. I rode through Portimão, Ribamar, Figueiredo, and Albufeira. They all have their individual vibe and charm, but none made me think that I'd chosen poorly. Nothing beats the Lisbon area when you add the challenge of getting there. A direct flight from SFO and 30-minute Uber ride beats multiple flights, a transfer to Faro, and a train or a bus to your house. I've heard that the Algarve is like the California of Portugal. Honestly, to me, Portugal is the California of Europe. Porto is like San Francisco and the Lisbon is like LA, but all the dimensions are half of what they are in California. The Portuguese population is also 1/5 of California, so everything is much smaller, but still has a lot of the same vibe. There's wine, surfers, and lots of happy people. After visiting the Algarve, I'm sorry to report that it's more like the Florida of Portugal. There are tourists everywhere. Now, I'm visiting tourist sites, so there should be many tourists, but it's crazy how most things here are oriented towards tourism and not the locals. Almost everyone speaks English. If you hear two people in a grocery store, they're probably speaking English. Go to a restaurant and most customers will be speaking English. On the whole, Day 2 was more successful than Day 1. I was much more on my schedule than I expected. While my GoPro mount did fail, I managed to be much more disciplined about swapping out batteries than I was yesterday. And I saw some fascinating sights that were even better than the first day. I hope you enjoyed your ride with me. If you did, I'd appreciate a like, and if you loved it, subscribe and tell your friends. I'm sure I got things wrong, so let me know below. Or just drop a note to say hi. Thanks, and may you have travel and good fortune in your future.